the right time to get into private money? I see a lot of people just find out about private money lending and get curious and they're like, oh, that sounds like something I can do. But I do think there is a strategy to the timing of it, right? Like, when is the right time to start something like this as opposed to just spending some time learning and getting familiar with the space, right? So we're going to get into that, right? We're also going to get into like, is this a set it and forget it type of business? You know, what type of responsibility is involved and how do I maintain that balance? So, my opinion is that the right time to get into private money lending is really going to vary from person to person, of course. But in general, I would say that when you are at that stage in your life where you're like, you know what, I want one, my dollars to go further. Okay. Like I want stronger growth of my money. And maybe you are in some other investment vehicle and you're seeing some steady growth or whatever, but it's not moving fast enough to get you to where you want to be by the time you want to get there. That's one sign. And I've seen this with people who are planning to retire soon. You know, I get students who thought they're going to retire in 5 years and then, you know, maybe they had a meeting with their investment advisor or the custodian of their 401k and they're like, the way it's looking actually is that you're going to need 10 more years. And they're like, no, that's not going to work. And so they have this reality check of like, whoa, I don't know if it's the stocks I'm picking or the ETFs or index funds or whatever, but it's just not really hitting fast enough for me to retire in the 5 years that I want to. So that's another sign, right? Are you at a place in your life where you're like, I want my dollars to go further faster? Okay. Another thing you may be thinking about is how much time do I actually have to focus on growing my money? You may be working full time, you may have just had a baby, I don't know, right? And so you're probably being exposed to all these different investment strategies. They got stock markets, they got real estate, they got syndication, they got everything, okay? And you might be like, but which one is gonna be like more passive for me, right? Which one's gonna allow me to be the mother that I want to be, you know, because you just had a baby, or be the wife that I want to be, or husband, or whatever, right? Which one's going to give me the time that I want? This can really be that for you, right? Private money lending can be that for you. Again, you will have to put in work in the beginning to set everything up. But once it's set up, and this goes to the set it and forget it, it's not set it and forget it, but it's set it and maintain it, okay? So once everything is set up, you can use your systems, you can rely on your processes, you can delegate certain things, and then you update them as needed. But it is definitely more on the passive side relative to how much you can make in profit. And what I mean by that is typically I'm seeing that the more passive an investment is, the lower the profit margin, okay? And sometimes the higher the risk, right? So this is true for a lot of investments in the alternative space. You may be able to invest in a syndication as a limited partner, and you may be able to keep your money in there for, I don't know, let's say 2 years and get 12% return and do absolutely nothing, right? That's truly passive. But even on the front end, you have to do some due diligence, right? On the operator and the project and things like that. So there's a little bit of time commitment still. But with private money lending, you can exceed that 12%, but you're still gonna have to put in some work on the front end to get everything set up. And you're still gonna have to do the due diligence when a transaction comes in. But once that's done though, then you can sit back and wait to get that 14, 15, 20% or whatever it is, as opposed to what you would have gotten with an even more passive investment. So I hope that makes sense. So if you're thinking about, you know, how fast can my money get to where it needs to be, if you're thinking about how to better leverage your time to get to where you want to be, but still be making money, this may also be something to think about. And if you are a real estate investor who is fed up, okay, and I'm not saying like I'm not fed up, but I'm getting a little tired, okay? I'm thinking long term about the sustainability of real estate as an investment vehicle for me. Now, I believe that I'm always going to own real estate. Like I don't think I'm going to eliminate real estate from my portfolio. However, the question is like how involved do I want to be? And what I'm learning is I don't really want to be that involved. Okay. Like on some level, I enjoy being a landlord because of the power I have to help people, right? Like I can help someone avoid eviction simply because I own the property, right? If someone's falling on hard times or whatever, like I can be flexible because I'm the owner, right? I don't have to put people out on the street if I don't want to, right? Or if I feel like that's not appropriate for them. And I enjoy that. And I enjoy being able to help and being able to provide quality housing for people. But I do not enjoy the constant contact of people and trying to get repairs and all that stuff, dealing with contractors. I don't enjoy that aspect of the business, but that is inherently involved in the business. And so thinking about as I transition into an era where I want to be more available. I don't have kids right now, but I'm going to have kids. And I think they require a lot of time and money and attention. And I want to be able to provide that, right? So thinking about transitioning some of my investments to something more passive like private money lending, where I can kind of control how much time and when I put that time in. Like if I'm ready to take on a loan, I can set time aside to do what I need to do for that loan and then step back completely until repayment happens, you know? And I like that flexibility. So those are some of the things that you're thinking about, like the level of responsibility involved in this investment. I think that's something to consider as well. There's tons of options, right? Like there's always going to be something available to fit what it is that you're trying to do, but understanding where it fits directly in terms of your goals, I think is the more difficult piece, right? So along those same lines, I'm also learning about syndications and debt funds and, where that fits in the private lending space and, if that makes sense for me and things like that. So I think if you're having those same conversations with yourself of like, I know I should be growing my money, but how do I grow my money? Right. But if you're more in the space of, well, I'm still earning, right? Like I'm still trying to stabilize my finances. Maybe you're paying off a lot of debt, or maybe your income isn't that high and you don't feel like you're ready to be in that growth phase, that aggressive growth phase yet. It may not be the right time, right? It may be that right now you invest in learning about this strategy and getting the education that you need so that when you are ready, you can deploy your capital for private money lending. But right now, maybe the focus is, all right, let me stabilize my finances. Let me create more cash flow. Let me, do whatever it is that you need to do. So those are just some ways to think about it. If you want to go into more detail to see like, is this actually right for me at this time? Feel free to book a call. The link is in the description and we can chat about it.